Hello, it's Bill Coughlin here, and it's the market update. We have got a guest speaker today, Glen Kelleway from Mortgage Architect, to join us to help us with the financial side. So, Glen, you're on stream, are you? We got you here?
I'm here, Bill. Hey,
Okay, well, bottom line is lots of changes, lots and lots of changes in the market. I think the main thing we all see out there is that at least we're more stable than those incredibly volatile years during COVID. So good to see you, Glenn.
hey, thanks, Bill. It's good to see you again. Been a long time since we've last caught up. I think it was at your new development there, but we'll pick that up a little bit later. Hey, Bill, what's happening in the market today?
Well, Glenn, good question. Of course, everybody's really sitting on edge. Is it going to pick up in the spring or is it going to crash? And the reality is, it's pretty stinking stable. Uh, you would be, I study the numbers like crazy, but we are virtually in a normal market where the prices pick, there's activity in the spring. We're doing pretty good. Some of our cities, like Abbotsford, Langley, Fort Langley, are the strong as they usually get, which means they're going to pick up 5, 10 grand this month. And other cities, like say East Surrey, West Surrey, are pretty quiet, so they won't. But overall, strong spring, and it'll probably settle down in the middle of June. And then our normal winter slowdown, in the winter months. That's what we're looking like right now.
Hey, are you seeing any multiple offers now in certain areas? I mean,
Yes, we are seeing multiple offers, but extreme resistance to pay much more. Like the buyers are all they're out there. The buyers are out there, but to be honest, they're still looking for a deal, and they're not motivated at all to feel the pressure to have to buy now. But I have seen multiple offers for sure.
so we've seen a huge increase over the last 15, 20 years. What sort of numbers are we looking at in that huge increase? I know it's way over 10 or 15%, but like what have we seen in the last 20 plus years?
As far as volume, or as
Yeah,
far
housing prices have gone up. So if someone bought 20 years ago, what have they seen for an increase in their house value?
oh golly, well, of course, that's my area of specialty, isn't it? Okay, Glenn, let me show you what's going on in life here. I pulled up the graph here for the Fraser Valley, and since COVID, well, just a matter of interest, since the year 2000, the Fraser Valley is up 538%. That's the highest in the entire world, all cities. Okay. So that was quite interesting to study. And then, today it settled down, but it's still up 423%. Now, what I find just a little bit interesting, if we were talking Vancouver, they hit 450% up. And today they've settled just a little bit. They're still 416. So, if you put the two together, the Fraser Valley, like, let's say Maple Ridge to Chilliwack, had a dramatic increase. That's 82% increase since COVID. And Vancouver only went up 45%. You notice we're virtually double the inflation in the Fraser Valley.
And why are they going up that far? I know people want to move out and move to small towns and little places and get some land but why have we seen such a peak in prices? Was that just due to COVID or what was that?
Well, two things. First of all, this is the first time we've seen the Vancouver market itself, which using the words Vancouver, but most of our influx of cash is from Asian cities, right?
Was?
That really, really slowed down during the COVID years. So Hong Kong was locked out of bringing money out right at the beginning of COVID. China's already had massive restrictions on pulling money out, and that slowed down. And then in January of 23, we cut all foreign buyers out for normal housing, right? So
Ouch.
now you see this red line. The Vancouver market basically became a lot more stable. At the end of the day, anybody that is selling in Vancouver is still moving out to the valley. So this is people with twice the cash as the Valley residents are, and that's pushing prices, okay? So when somebody sells in Burnaby for 3 mil, and they come out to Abbotsford and they're buying for 2 mil, they are paying top dollar,
Yep.
right? That's why you see that extra inflation. These guys in Vancouver are selling, but if they're selling for 3 mil, they need a Chinese buyer to pay that, and they're not there. So less demand for the high end in Vancouver, right?
Hey, Bill, I mean, we're across the pond. Okay, so we've got Southeast Asia, particularly China, because there's a lot of dollars there that have been migrating across. Are we getting any other investors coming in from other parts of the world, or is it just mainly mainland or Hong Kong, Taiwan?
Well, no, I mean, we've got a lot of money from Syria. We've got a lot, we've had money from Russia.
Oh yeah.
There's money coming from all over. Right now, probably the big fish out there is actually India again. Okay, so India has potential to bring a lot of money this way. That one shut down because the Canadian government, the Indian government are fighting, and India even closed down passports for a while, right? Visas, right? So, but I'm just saying the potential is there.
So my Indian group of friends, I was sitting there during the Super Bowl game when we were talking about the immigrants coming in, and the challenge, and I've heard this from other sources, is years ago we were having high valued immigrants to come over with money and education. So now they're coming over with education, but not so much money. And what they're finding here is basically get their rice and beans job, to use an expression that a friend of mine uses for her entrepreneurial clients. They're not finding it. They're Uber drivers or doing other things. So they're not finding those jobs. And some of them are actually going back once they've got their status, they got landed. So I don't know, what's your take on that?
Well, absolutely. Like, for example, we have 750,000 Hong Kong residents or people in Hong Kong are Canadian residents. They're Canadians.
Wow.
750,000. So for the last 3 years, we're all waiting for them. 4 years, we're all waiting for them to start to come to Canada, but they can't afford us anymore. They went up, let's say 200%. We went up 400%, right? So they're selling their condos for $1 million, and they can barely buy one here for that, right? So
I've got clients that, grew up in mom and dad, and they did they spent almost every day when they weren't in school at the kitchen table studying, and then they moved to Canada, and what was $2 million for an apartment there now, I guess, has gone up a little bit, but their house here that she bought has doubled in value, tripled in value in North Vancouver since she bought it. So yeah, it's an interesting thing to see with migrating and migrating dollars. Hey, all right. So Bill, we've got a fair bit of activity in some areas and not in others. Can you give us just a rundown quickly as to what areas are active and what's not, and explain that to the audience?
okay, for the people that are interested, and often this is investors, we publish every Saturday at noon what's called the sell-through rates. Okay. And that shows you how many homes are selling in each city. Okay, so Glenn, let me explain what sell-through rates is. For example, in Maple Ridge here, we have 407 homes for sale and 17 sold last week. That's an 18% of the homes are selling on the monthly rate. Glenn, that is a stable market, not going up, not going down. Between 15 and 20 is pretty stable, okay? By the way, if you see some blue like this 10%, like Port Coquitlam, Port Moody is actually sucking wind. Look at this. 134 homes for sale. They sold 3 homes last week. Okay.
Wow.
So that's pretty bad. But then have a look at the strength here. Fort Langley or Langley Cloverdale set the record. 30% sell-through rate. That's 30% of the homes are selling each month. They sold 30 homes out of 430 for sale in the week. And the second highest here is Abbotsford. They're at 27%. So these are solid reds. These cities are actually going up as we speak. These are stable, and this one or two are going down. By the way, you can't count on that same rate for Vancouver. These people that buy in Vancouver for 5 mil, they're cash. Okay. and they don't ever drop their prices. So I only need about a 6% sell-through rate to make this market go up. So this is actually very strong for Vancouver.
Hmm.
By the way, 1 week data, Glenn, is terrible because what if there's a holiday or a snowstorm or something? So it's nice to go back the previous week here, and you can still see, Fort Langley, Cloverdale, 23%. Abbotsford this time is 13. So you can see the variation in data just looking for a week. So I do like to at least get to 2 week data, and it still shows here 2 week data. Fort Langley is at 28%. Anyhow, you can see some changes are happening. It is a normal market.
Across the board. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, across the board, we're sitting here with 17% sell through in Vancouver and 20% in the Valley. This is stable. This is actually going up. Okay.
What are the volumes associated with these sales?
Well, listen, now that's a very interesting one. Like, for example, in the Fraser Valley, we had 138 sales last week. That's like the lowest we've seen in 20 years. Okay, like these are not high numbers. In our peaks, we would have had like 400 or 500 sales in a week. But guess what, Glenn? We got nothing for sale. This is 2,800 listings. We've been at over 6,000 listings sometimes, right? So half the people are for sale and the sales are lower, but that's enough to hold our market steady. Okay, that's very interesting. Now, Glenn, when people go to buy, there's two things. Number one is they're having to look that their market has gone up. It started going up 82% since COVID came in, and then it settled down a little bit, but they're still up 60 some percent. So a big 50% in the Fraser Valley still up 50% from the beginning of COVID. So that's a ticker shock price. And then you combine that with the mortgage rates, and you tell me. But here, the guys go to get a new mortgage, it's not 2% for 5 years anymore. What happened?
Well, we had hyperinflation, I think, and during our stagflation that was the previous 10 plus 15 years, we had very low GDP. So interest rates didn't move, but the government printed probably more money in the last 2 years than it has in the past 50 years. 40% more cash is what I was reading in the data reports recently. And interest rates peaked. We went from being under 2% for a 5-year term to in the high sixes for a 5-year term for the same quality. We'll call it insurable rates.
And so, Glenn, we've seen prices go up 82% in the Fraser Valley during that whole COVID period. And then with the higher interest rates, like crazy interest rates, 22-year high mortgage rates, we had to drop right down to 50% again, right? So prices went up and have come back down. We're in a stable market today. So we've got some cities like Fort Langley that are running 30% sell-through rate, and Abbotsford at 27%. That's pretty good. So we're in a position of what we call a normal market, where when the flowers start to bloom, everybody's out buying. And in the winter market, when the rains or snow is coming, prices go down a little bit. We're actually in a normal market.
So does that mean that because I've heard this expression that if realtors don't have a good spring, they don't have a good year. So the realtors are going to have to hustle to get their good spring in. Is that what you're saying, Bill?
Oh yeah, gotta hustle. Well, right now, one issue we have is we have no listings. It is like our listing inventory in the Fraser Valley is 2,800. I mean, often we've been at 6,000 listings, so our listing levels are virtually half of normal. So that's one reason why our prices are staying up. We don't have that many sales. It's still one of our lowest number of volume sales, but because we have no listings, it's actually holding the prices pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to ask you another question here, Bill. I'm selling my house in Maple Ridge for 1.2. What can I buy in Abbotsford for the similar, say, 3,600 square foot house in the Fraser Valley?
Abbotsford's going to be pretty close to parity, Guy.
Oh, shucks.
Here's how the numbers work. Uh, right now, we're running, it's $10,000 a minute of travel time from Vancouver. There's a very simple calculation. So to drive from Vancouver to your house and to drive from Vancouver to Abbotsford is probably within 10 minutes, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, depending on traffic. Yeah, because you're number one.
55 minute, it's a 55-minute drive from Abbotsford to BC Place. How long is it from your place? 40.
Might actually be more. But it's because
So value-wise, between Abbotsford and Maple Ridge would be parity. Now,
okay.
if you go to Chilliwack, you're going to save, that's another 20 minutes. You should save better part of 200,000, right?
Wow.
Right. And if you go to Likely or Horsefly, have you heard of those? Oh, you're going to be way down to
I was talking to my brother about the shoe swap, and the shoe swap has got some pretty awesome deals up there, but that's a
yeah.
long way to commute to a movie in Vancouver.
So a lot of people would like to buy today. The buyers are out there, sticker price shock. They're still up 50% from the start of COVID. And the mortgage rates are still up. What did you say? Somewhere around 43% or something?
Yeah, if we compare sort of
20%?
March 2020 to November to today, we're still seeing a difference in the payments have gone up. If you borrow the same amount of money, the payments have gone up about 50%. So that
Okay,
pricing's
so
up. So you can borrow less is what you're doing. And the rule of thumb that people need to think about is you look at your household income. Debts, we'll assume you have no debts. You look at your household income and you multiply by 4, maybe 4.1 or 4.2. If you multiply that, you got 100,000, you could borrow about 420 of money. And then what's your cash in? $200,000 of down payment, you're getting into that 6 range for buying. Now, if you have big car payments, talk to me first.
okay, hold it. I like that little formula. If you make 100,000 a year, you should qualify for a $400,000 mortgage. Is that correct?
Approximately. And so the way that works, Bill, is we used to use about a 4.25 to 4.3 multiple, and it's just a rule of thumb. If you're buying a little tiny apartment, your condo fees and your property tax and everything else kind of shrink that ratio. But if you're buying a bigger house, we can use that. But it's a real rule of if I say, what are you making? What do you got for payments? And I do a quick math to figure out whether their payments are biting into their mortgage buying. I use a rule of thumb 4, and that gets me into the range. But then I have to check everything because people don't know their stuff. Like they don't know it from my perspective.
Yeah, well, that's just an interesting little formula. Anyhow, listen, at the end of the day, somebody that was considering buying at the beginning of COVID and went and waited, now they're going, gee, prices are up 50%. And now they're going, gee, mortgage rates are up 50%. So the buyers are there, but in many ways, they just can't afford the double, right?
Oh no, yeah, we've seen 25 and 30% drop off in terms of their qualifying. Even
Yeah. Now, second thing would be if people, when the government says they're going to drop interest rates in November, a lot of the marketplaces, oh, buyers will come out of the woodwork now. They'll be so excited. No, 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 no. Buyers will say, I'll wait until November when the rates drop, 2% or something, right? And now we're hearing, and you tell me, but uh, both the Americans and the Canadian governments have been trying to get a 2% inflation rate. It is not happening.
oh, but it
So,
is. It's a 2% inflation rate if we take out the interest and the effect that it has on our mortgages. We got 2% on the rest of the stuff. It's our housing stuff that they're factoring in. And as they push up interest rates, they push up the inflation rate. So they're tied. If you back that out, Benjamin Tall says we're sitting at 2%. And Benjamin Tall's the CIBC World Markets economist. So we just slipped below 3.3% in interest rate just recently.
so what are you seeing? What's your forecast? If people are planning to wait until November, honest to goodness, what do you think rates will have adjusted between now and then?
Here's the thing. We've done some rough math on this. If rates come down a quarter point and prices go up, well, Bill, what do you think the housing prices are going to do between now and the end of the year in terms of percentage?
Stable.
Stable. So they're not going to go up a quarter point, or
No,
not going to go up 0.2, 0.3?
no.
Okay. So if that's the case, then maybe they should wait. But my question is, are they paying rent? Like there's a whole bunch of other factors. Should they buy now or buy later? And if they need to buy now, they probably should take a shorter term and pay a premium for that, but be done in a year and renew in a year. Because a year from now, I expect interest rates to be down. I wish I had a crystal ball, but
And what do you think they'll be down?
at least a quarter percent, maybe a half point.
So like it was only 2 or 3 months ago, the government was encouraging us that it would come down even 1, 2% by November. And I mean, I listened to all their promises originally a year ago, or when they first started raising rates, they said they would drop them in November, and then they dropped them in December, and then they dropped them in January, and then in February, and then in March. Now we're hearing maybe a quarter point drop in March. Is that about right?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Yourself as a realtor and the public thinks rates, and they think one thing, they think rates. But when the government says prime rate, or the overnight rate, which is tied to prime, that's the wholesale rate, or they say fixed rates, that there's this whole bucket of things called rates. And like looking at dogs, whether you got a little tiny one or you got the big mallet and big mutt there, it's all different. So the whole point of this is you're talking about variable rates, and variable rates are driven off the prime market, and the prime, my camera's getting out of focus, the prime rate is sitting at 7.2%. Well, it was down at 2.45% at the start of COVID. So it's climbed a huge amount, and it's got to fall off. Right now, it's cheaper to take a fixed rate than it is to take a variable rate, with the proviso that if you're going to break a variable rate, you're stuck at 3 months interest. If you break a fixed rate a month or 2 or 5 or 10 months from now, and the rates have dropped, you're going to get hit with an IRD penalty. The point I'm trying to say is talk to a professional about what your plans are, what your long-term, and understand not only what the cost of the funds are today, but the cost if you drop into that 50 to 60% of the people who break their mortgages within about 36 months. Divorce, have to move, all of these things. There's a lot of people that are rearranging. So just rate is one thing, but we're seeing rates come down. So if you got cheap accommodations, you might wait to buy. Bill, I'm going to ask you a question. How many people bought in 2020 and 2021 that we're going to buy in 23, 24, 25? What was the effect that COVID had with low rates in terms of dragging buyers out of the future and into the day?
Yeah. No, those low rates sucked a lot of buyers from the future.
I think so.
So listen, here's the bottom line. I have personally got many, many clients that have now been waiting 4 full years to make a move. And honest to goodness, they have to move. Like they're seniors, they can't do the stairs. They need a level entry. Families moved away. There's 2 people in a 6,000 square foot home.
Wow.
That they don't need the size, right? They're looking for a little condo somewhere. So I say to everybody, number one is don't expect the prices to change. So they're not going to crash, you guys. If you're going to buy today's price and next November, I don't see a big difference. And on the mortgage rates, I'm calling this myself for you, Glenn, but watching the Federal Reserve in the States, boy, oh boy, they sure want that 2% inflation rate, and they're very stubborn on reducing interest rates. So we're not going to ever see 2% ever again. I don't think we'll see 3. I'd be surprised if we see 4. So I would say a year from now, we'd be lucky if we got a 0.75% drop in our rates.
Yeah.
Watching American, Canadian governments, right?
So the 20 plus years I've been in this business, we've been talking about the 4.5%. That's the mortgage rate that we would be dealing with on the 5-year bucket. That's about the right rate. 2% is too low. 6% is too high. But from an economic standpoint, somewhere in that 4 to 4.5% range is probably where it could be. Is it going to be there in a year and a half? Maybe, might take longer. But here's the thing. For your clients out there that are looking to buy, why don't they go find what they want now and buy it now and sell their place when they're ready?
Yeah, true enough. But if both markets are stable, like in a rising market, you can buy now and sell your other place when it's gone up 50 grand and make a gain. Or in a dropping market, you can sell now and wait and buy in 6 months and make a 50 grand gain. But in a stable market, it makes no difference.
Okay.
So bottom line to my clients, my job is say, guys, you've been waiting 4 years to make the move. It's time you move to that retirement villa, and don't be waiting for red roses around the corner. This is it. This is as good as it gets right now today. And I see no big changes.
So you're saying list your place, go find a place.
I'm saying the prices won't drop, and the interest rates basically are not dropping worth a hill of beans.
So let's just assume that inventory is low. They can't find what they want, so they're afraid that they're going to. What do you tell your clients who are afraid to sell, be stuck now selling their place, but can't find what they want to buy? So what do you do to help them out in that case?
Well, first of all, if somebody's buying something and they haven't sold yet, then we try and do a very long completion. So I've had an awful lot of completions, or a fair number, that are 6 months down the road. Okay. Even a year. So that's potentially can happen. And that way you've got a full year to sell your place, right?
Right.
But what I'm trying to do is take it away from fear from people that, gee, interest rates aren't going to double. Don't worry about it. And prices aren't going to drop in half. Don't worry about it. Both of those are down to stable numbers.
Yeah.
Right.
What I'm seeing with the clients, the older clients that I'm working with, is they're worried about not finding the right place. So what we've been doing with them is we've been setting them up with, some of them have still got good pension income. So we set them up with enough money so they can go put a deposit down, a nice chunky deposit down in a place, get that long completion. A lot of them paid off their mortgage. They're mortgage free. Or we set them up with a reverse mortgage, like a chip mortgage, either open or closed. And then they go buy that property they want and they move the mortgage over to the new property when they sell. Done. So now they've got time to go find that property. I know it's tough on realtors because they're seeing every little nook and cranny, but they find the property and now they're comfortable that they can sell and they don't have to worry about it because they've got time. And if they don't mind the cost of the transfer, that basically the cost of owning two properties at one time for a few months, it works for most.
No, that makes sense. And I mean, I think the general conclusion here is people have a need to move. Either the kids are all gone or the house needs more repairs. You want less maintenance, you want no stairs or whatever it is. So there's no reason to forego your decision today. And yes, what you can afford, you have to have reduced expectations because prices seriously are up 50%. So you cannot buy what you could buy in the year 2000, okay? You're just going to have to adapt to the new limits on your buying power, right?
Yep.
And mortgage-wise, well, you say some of your guys are clear title, but mortgage-wise, do not expect the 2-point drop in the interest rates. Not going to happen. And by the way, just to explain that lately, I keep telling everybody, when the federal government borrows $500 billion, and you use what's called the Keynesian theory of economics, that is times 10. So they put $5 billion into the marketplace. That floods the market, and that itself creates a 27.5% inflation rate. Now, that means your dollar from before is now worth 22.5%, 72.5 cents, right? So your buying power got killed. That causes inflation. And then when you put 31 cents per cent tax on a liter of gas, the driving of the fruit to your store and the trains and the cars and the transportation, that causes 2%. And then when you increase the mortgage rates, as you say, the cost of housing increases, that costs more than 2%. So for any of the federal governments to think there's any chance in God's green earth they can get the inflation rate down to 2% are not financial people. They are journalists, okay? They have no sense of reality. It's not going to happen. Dream on your 3% inflation rate. That's about as close as we're getting.
I've had the conversations with our local MP regarding stuff. And they don't understand the math. They don't understand finance. They don't understand.
Well,
They passed legislation, done.
no, but on the positive side, our prime minister knows the books will balance themselves, right? So that's one way to think, right? I'm borrowing another, whatever, $750 million deficit this year. Is that what it is? Another $750 million deficit? Billion.
Millions of dollars, Bill.
Billion. It's like books will balance themselves, but definitely not when they're writing out blank checks all over the place, right?
I
So,
that whole world economics and borrowing to keep the economies going and rolling, that's a very long thing. I've just been doing some reading and some listing, and that is one big subject matter. But
yeah,
right now, as far as our local market's concerned here, it's good to hear it's stable, so people got some time to sell. Although I was just talking to a realtor today, and multiple offers, not crazy multiple offers, but still multiple offers. It went up to asking price, and
yeah,
that was in Burnaby. So,
yeah. Real resistance to pay a premium price, but the buyers are there.
yep.
And let's put it this way, there's more buyers in inventory for sure by maybe 5 times, but they're cautious. And let's put it in all reality, my job out there is to take away the fear from people. Because look, we almost all died of COVID. Look, we almost had we had the highest interest rates in 22 years. Look at the wars in Ukraine and the threat of nuclear bombs. Like all of these fears put people under the bed and stop them from making decisions. Finally, we're actually pretty stinking stable.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think people realize it, but it just takes a while for it to sink in that things are not going to change in the direction that they would fear or they would like lower rates or fear higher rates. It's going to stay stable.